It must be the 2 week mark because it's panic index time, and I'm doing it completely different today. Look, there's no happiness, no nothing, because it's the trade deadline edition of the panic index. So here's where it becomes what do I think they should do as opposed to what I think they're doing. So we'll discuss this with all 31 teams. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Anaheim clearly is going to be selling. I don't know who they sell necessarily, but there's going to be some selling going on. This has been a disappointing season for them. I think even compared to what their standard probably would have been before the season started, I think it's been a disappointing season for them. So, yeah, I would think selling is important at this stage. Arizona, I kind of think they're going to stand pat. However, I do think that if they can add a little bit more depth and scoring, I think that might be their preference. I think that might be their best route to take. I don't know who they pick up necessarily, and that's what I don't like to do. I don't like to do the speculation because speculation very rarely ends up being accurate, and I don't like it. I stay away from it. So for Arizona, it's definitely, I think forwards is where they need it. They could probably use another defenseman, maybe one or two. But again, just strictly as depth. I think what you see with Arizona is pretty much what you're going to get. Boston's in a buy mode. Apparently, Kreider, his name gets tied there. And I only say that because it's reputable sources within the media reporting it. And so Boston clearly's in the market to upgrade their forward group. I don't think they need to do much. Their blue line is excellent. The development of Matt Grzelcyk has really solidified that blue line. And don't look now, but Jeremy Lauzon looks like a pretty good shutdown defenseman on the way. So for Boston, things are pretty good. I do think they shore things up at the deadline. Buffalo clearly is a team that needs to sell. And yet they've got a general manager that as recently as within the last week has stated a desire to be a buyer, and for months has been looking for an ability to make a trade. And the most recent thing I saw was he's been trying to make a trade. He can't find anybody who will trade with him that'll give up what he wants or wants what he's offering in that order. So that's the problem. The problem is the players that Buffalo has available, other teams are looking at and going, eh. And the players that they want, other teams are saying, well, you'd have to give up, and then insert name of good young player or prospect they don't want to give up, or draft pick they don't want to give up either. You don't want to be giving up a first round draft pick if you're Buffalo. As much as you'd love to improve and make a run at it, they're not giving up a first round draft pick. Calgary. You know what's funny about Calgary is I get the funny feeling they may end up mostly standing pat. The injury to Giordano, I think, has kind of forced their hand. Now, they may pick up a couple of depth guys, but I think in general, the roster you have now is probably going to be very, very close to the roster that they have once we start the playoffs. And whether that team's in the playoffs is where things get a little tricky. But I don't get the feeling that Calgary is going to make any big moves. Brad Treliving, who's usually pretty good at the poker face, hasn't given anything away on this either. And it feels like things are pretty even keel. Carolina's tricky, but Carolina, I don't think there's going to be anything crazy out of them. I would be very surprised if they don't kind of stand pat. Again, could they add a depth player here or there? Yes. Do they make any big moves? I don't think so. I think Carolina's pretty much going to go with the way things are. I think the fact that they're in a playoff spot right now and it looks like Columbus is fading, I think that's important to them. And it probably makes them more confident that this roster is going to get into the playoffs and reward them for their patience. Chicago. Yeah, Chicago needs to be a seller. Chicago is not in a position where even if they made a run and got a second wild card spot, yeah, you might be able to do something if this team gets in the playoffs, but it does seem like it's a seller's market. So take advantage of that and go ahead and sell till the cows come home. And just see what you can get for players. Just put them out there. And I think Bowman will do that between now and Monday. Just see what can you get for Gustafsson. What can you get for one of your forwards who maybe he's on the downside of his career, and see what you can do outside of Taves or Kane, of course, who aren't going anywhere. But yeah, it's been a rough year for Chicago. And we'll see how things turn out at the deadline on Monday. Colorado's clearly in the market, and it appears that they're in market for a forward. Now, I will say this. If Grubauer's injury is long-term, they need goaltending. If Grubauer's injury is long-term, then this changes from them being in on Kreider and looking to upgrade their forward group to just goaltending, and probably some goaltending. Because while I like Francouz, there's nobody who's third in this organization that I say, yeah, if they go into the playoffs, that's a guy that you want to see getting some action in the playoffs. So depending on the extent of Grubauer's injury, which we still don't know to this point, I'm leaving them under looking for forward help, but that could easily switch to goaltending pretty darn quick. Columbus. I do think Columbus may be in the market, may look to add on the blue line. Seth Jones being out has definitely hurt their game. And they've fought injuries all year. They're not going to use injuries as an excuse. I don't think it's always an excuse either. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And so I think if Columbus can make additions on the blue line without hurting their team, they're hurt. And I mean, prospects and draft picks again, I think they'll be careful with that. Basically, you look at what they did last year at the deadline and giving up so much as they did in order to acquire players that were just pure rentals. They're not going to be looking to do that again this year. But if they can make a sensible addition, I think they will, and I think it would be on the blue line. I think that's where they're looking. Dallas. Dallas definitely needs forwards. The goal scoring has been better lately. I have more confidence in it, but if they can add another top six forward, I'd be pretty happy. There's this Valerian Nichushkin guy who finally decided to have a good year now that he's not in Dallas. That guy would have looked pretty good in Dallas this year. But all bitterness aside, I do wish him the best. He's finally starting to look like the player that was drafted by Dallas in the first round and was seen as a steal at the time he was drafted. So it's about time that showed up and that compete level. And we didn't see last year in Dallas. And now Dallas needs that kind of forward. So we'll see if Jim Nill finds the prices are too high. But yeah, I think Dallas is in the market for forward help. Detroit is clearly in the sell. I could have joked around and put him in buying. Now, the interesting thing is if you're Steve Yzerman, and if you can make a deal right now to pick up a goaltender, you do it. And I'm talking about if he can, in the process of selling, acquire a goaltender who might be able to come in next season and play and split time with Bernier, who would be an upgrade on Jimmy Howard, you do it. So Detroit may very well be a team that at the deadline decides, you know what, we're going to add for next year. So they may be picking up futures, but it may not be the distant future that some teams look for, like when they get the 4th, 5th round picks and a prospect you haven't heard of, they go, the guy's a project, it'll take a few years. Detroit may very well say, you know what, we're going to look for guys who can help us as soon as possible. So, Edmonton, the rumor's been all year that they're looking for forward help. They're looking for wingers. I'm honestly on the fence. I think they could use another defenseman as well. But yes, we'll go with forwards. We'll say that they're still in the market for a top six. Canadian media desperately wants Hoffman to happen. They definitely want Hoffman to go to Edmonton. I've seen that rumor thrown out there by Canadian media many times. I'm pretty sure it's been both on TSN and Sportsnet. And I would think that it could work. But again, Hoffman's name comes up a lot. And to this stage, I haven't heard anything about Florida necessarily wanting to get rid of Hoffman. Although Florida, who are next alphabetically, do need defense. The weird part is, when I hear this, and I hear, oh yeah, Hoffman would be a good addition for the Oilers, well, what defenseman are you going to give up to Florida? And with Clefbaum on the shelf for 2 to 3 weeks, how in the world are you going to justify giving up a defenseman? Because if you go to Florida and you go, well, we'll give you Evan Bouchard, Florida laughs, and then when they collect themselves, they go, deal. So you're not doing that. Ken Holland, while people talk about his missteps as a coach, or as GM, I should say, of Detroit, he's not a fool. and therefore he's not going to trade out Bouchard. He's not going to trade Broberg just for Hoffman. So again, these are non-starters. They're not trading their first-round draft pick either, is what the rumor's been. I'm saying is what the rumor's been because if they're in a position to be first in the division, you might want to look at maybe parting with a first-round pick to make sure you make the playoffs. But does Hoffman put them over the top? And does, again, if you're Florida, you need defense, but you kind of need the defense now. So which defenseman currently on, see, where this is where it gets tricky. When media goes, well, Hoffman, it's the same response I used to give people when you'd see the armchair GMing, where they go, I just think the Canucks should go out and get an insert name of player here. And I'd go, how? Well, they should just go out and get him. How? Show your work. It's always been my answer. Show your work. That's why I don't get into the speculation thing, because it gets ridiculous. Because then it turns into, well, this GM sucks because he didn't go get that guy. Oh, well, how would you have gone and got that guy? You're smarter than he is, so how would you have done it? And then from there, they don't have an answer other than, well, he's the GM. No. You claim that you know how to go get that guy. Go ahead. I'm sure he's listening too, and he's all ears and wants to know how you would have got that player. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these guys. LA, yeah, they're selling. The Los Angeles Kings are selling, should be selling, are selling. Toffoli's gone. The Martinez deal, here's the interesting. Alec Martinez is being traded to Vegas. He is going to Vegas. He will be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. It's just a matter of when. It's supposed to be announced today. Maybe announced while I'm doing this video. I won't stop this video and come back and redo it because Martinez got traded. I don't think he moves the needle that much, but he is a top 6 defenseman who can play top 4, and does Vegas need that desperately. And rumor is that it's a couple of second-round picks going the other way. So maybe they're debating about which ones. Either way, LA's selling, and they're likely going to have a terrible record from here because it's going to be a lot of minor league players going forward. Minnesota should be selling. And again, and I've mentioned this before, that it feels like they think they can still make a run at this. I don't think they can. I don't know if anybody wants to break that to Bill Guerin, but I don't see. You just look at the math about what kind of record they have to put up, and then how many teams they have to jump past, and it doesn't seem like it's feasible. But for Minnesota, they're selling hope to the fan base and hope to themselves, and we'll see how that works. Montreal, we saw them lose to Detroit last night for the 4th time in 4 games. Sell now, sell. All right, turn the brightness down because I'm having a harder time seeing that, and there's the sun and anyways. It's not as bad as it was in December, so but yeah, Montreal, they've got to sell. It's done. This is done. You can't come out of last night and say, oh, they're going to make a run. You can't. If Bergevin says, well, I watched last game, I don't think it's that bad, get the man a white cane immediately and a pair of really dark sunglasses because he's blind. So Montreal needs to figure this out. Nashville's going to be buying. Here's the interesting thing. Now, Nashville, I do believe will buy on some level. But is it forwards? Is it defense? I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here. I think they need a defenseman. I do. I think they need one defenseman who's almost like a Martinez level defenseman to really shore things down. I know their goaltending takes a lot of criticism, but their defense, which is normally fantastic, hasn't been that great. Their forward group seems to be pulling it together, and I'm looking at guys like Granlund and Johansson and even Turris and saying, you know what, these guys are starting to put up the goals. It's the blue line where I think they've had some letdowns this year, and they could use some shoring up on the blue line. So, yeah, I'm saying that for Nashville, and I don't think this has ever been the case where I've thought this, but I do think they need another blue liner. No, not PK Subban. New Jersey, they are clearly in sell mode. They've already sold off some pieces. There are others that likely will be sold off between now and the deadline. I think New Jersey's done well enough for themselves in the sales they've made so far, and we'll see how many more they make. The New York Islanders, they need a forward. The Islanders desperately need something at the forward position, any forward position, and they need goals. They need goals. They called up Kiefer Bellows to try to get the goal scoring going. That didn't quite work out. It worked out for like a game, and then it didn't. And the Islanders have scored 1 goal in their last 3 games. They need a goal scorer. So when you're looking at Hoffman, the Islanders would be honestly the most logical place for Hoffman to go. He's a 20 goal scorer. They're not in the same division. And Hoffman might very well be exactly what the Islanders need. So again, the Islanders should be in the market. Now, are they going to actually end up standing pat? It's Lou Lamoriello. It's possible. The Rangers are interesting. The Rangers should be in the sell mode. And I'm going to put them there. But if Kreider signs an extension, they're going to end up standing with what they've got. I don't know that there's a whole lot there that they want to get rid of. Lundqvist, I think if they could find a taker for Lundqvist right now, I think they do it. They've played Georgiev while Shesterkin's been hurt. If that's not an indicator that they're telling Lundqvist, thanks but no thanks, I don't know what is. So, yeah, the Rangers are selling. Ottawa, yeah, it's a full-on sale. DeMello got traded yesterday. Philadelphia, for Philly, I think their forward group's decent. I think their defense, their goaltending should be fine. I think Philadelphia probably stands relatively still at the deadline. I think if they can add a little bit of depth here and there, I think they do. And while I'm at it, now that Pittsburgh's added Jason Zucker, they may be looking to add on the blue line. They may be looking for some small additions. But I think Jim Rutherford, in all honesty, would be perfectly fine with staying with what he's got now that he's added Zucker. I think he'd be okay with the idea that that's all he's able to do. That's fine. Jack Johnson has had a bit of a bounce back season this year, so the need for another defenseman is there with Marino out, but I don't think it's a desperate need, and I don't think there's any need to further raid a already shallow pool of prospects and draft picks in order to go for another run when you've already got a pretty good team as it is and you're first in your division. San Jose, clearly selling. There's no way around it. San Jose's, it's sale time. It's sale time. Get everybody out of here. Other than the core, even though the core hasn't been good enough, should be interesting to see how that works next year. St. Louis has already brought in defense, but I think if they can add another one, they do. Scandella offsets the loss of Bouwmeester, but I think they could look to add at least one more blue liner. And again, it's not that they need a top flight blue liner, but you look at how many goals they've been allowing over the last month, and it's problematic. Now, you're not going to trade a goaltender because you've got Bennington and you've got Allen, and they're not trading either of those guys. I think their forward group's fantastic, but I do think they need another blue liner. If they're serious about trying to repeat, I think one more blue liner. Scandella doesn't quite tip the scale in their favor. Tampa, I don't think Tampa's going to do a whole lot because I don't see where Tampa needs to add right now. Tampa's on an 11-game winning streak. Don't tinker with it. Don't mess with it. I think they stand pat. I don't think anything changes. So, Toronto. That's where it's interesting. Last night, apparently a lot of Leaf fans saying, that's it. This team doesn't have the heart. They need to sell. Sell, 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 sell. I say they need desperate help on the blue line. Dennis Malgin's not a defenseman. And Kyle Dubas is going an unusual route, but Malgin's brought in because of the loss of Janssen for the rest of the year. Toronto needs defense, and I would say they need two. I'm also going to mention what I've talked about before. Toronto needs to fix their structure. Toronto turns the puck over way too much, and it's not just the defensemen that are turning the puck over too much, it's forwards too. There's an overall laziness of protecting the puck going on with Toronto right now. And so while yes, defense is what they need the most, they need help with the entire team and the way things are structured. So for Toronto, I'll go with defense, but there's a structure problem. Vancouver apparently is still in the market. They're in the market for forwards, but honestly, I think they need a defenseman. I know. With the addition of Toffoli, there's rumors that they're still in on Wayne Simmons. I don't think that's the problem. Toughness, I think, is an issue. I think they do need to get a little tougher. I think they need another defenseman. I do. And that's where what I'm putting on the board may very well differ from what the Canucks do, but I think they need another defenseman. I like Troy Stetcher, I'm not going to lie, but his play lately, not great. Hasn't been great. And I honestly think they need another blue liner. I like Myers. I like Edler. Love Quinn Hughes. I think they need one more guy in there. And so we'll see what they do at the deadline. Odds are they probably add. If they can get Simmons out of New Jersey, I think they do it. But I think they need a blue liner. They need a defenseman back there. And maybe Trampkin's the guy who ends up showing up next year. But for this season, they do need something else. And Trampkin hits like a truck. So he would provide that toughness that they're lacking overall right now, especially with Ferland being out and all, which is why Simmons going to Vancouver suddenly becomes probable destination. But yeah, Vancouver, I think it's defense that they need a little more than forwards, but it's close. Vegas, you know what? I'm going to come out with Vegas, and I'm going to say that while, yes, they need another defense, they're the one team in the league I look at, and I say, you know what? They need to split the goaltending duties. I talked about this last year when you had Gerard Gallant starting Marc-Andre Fleury in a ridiculous number of games back to back to back. Like it was, I think, 17 or 18 starts in a row for Marc-Andre Fleury. You need a goaltender that can split starts with him. Vegas isn't learning from some of these teams like Dallas, like Boston, who else? Most teams that are pretty darn good have two good goaltenders. And in all honesty, you need that. Toronto's got that lesson learned. They have Jack Campbell now, and I think he split starts with Freddie Anderson. And as long as it doesn't turn into a controversy, it's honestly better for everybody. Vegas hasn't got that memo yet. They're still playing their goaltender too much. There are other teams that are doing so as well. Montreal, out of necessity. But Vegas, I think, could use a goaltender they have some faith in. I like Malcolm Subban, but I don't know that he's necessarily NHL caliber. At the end of it, he has some good games. He has some down games, but he doesn't play enough. And he doesn't play enough. He doesn't get the confidence of the organization or the coach. And I think they need another goaltender. I think they need to bring in a Robin Lehner type and a guy who can split the starts 50-50. And then you've got Fleury completely rested and probably healthier for the playoffs. It just works out better that way. Washington's going to be adding, I would think. And I don't think they're done adding on the blue line. Dylan helps, but I think there's one more out there. And I think for the Capitals, they may very well stand pat from here. But I think if they can add another defenseman, I think they do. Which brings me to Winnipeg, and I add them to the defense list as well. And again, they added Dylan DeMello. It's nice. I think they need another player. And they need to get the whole Byfuglien thing completely cleared off the books. It's been hanging over their head all season. So that needs to be cleared up and gone away. So there you go. I have 5 teams standing pat. I have 11 teams that I think should be selling, and then I have everybody else potentially buying forwards, defense. And if you're Vegas, I think they should be looking to upgrade their backup position. Like I said, get a 1B goaltender, get somebody who can play 35 games a year. I don't know that they do it, but we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Who should be selling? Who should be buying? And what should they be buying at the deadline? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And since 2 weeks from now, that'll be, end of February, start of March, we'll start talking about a playoff bent on the Panik Index. So for now, we're done. Thank you guys so much for everything. I will talk to you again soon.